Hello and welcome. We're here at the Long Beach Public Library main auditorium on a gorgeous Saturday afternoon for the Blanche Collins Forum. Joining us today is Sonia Nazario, Pulitzer Prize-winning author of best-selling book Enrique's Journey. I loved the book and will share with our viewers. It's about one boy, Enrique, who represents millions of children who are being pushed out of their native countries by hunger, violence, and much more. You personally retraced Enrique's steps to the United States, which gave the book the full, rich details it needed to broaden our understanding of our neighbors, friends, and our ancestors who have immigrated and continue to come to the United States. Tell us a little bit about yourself. Welcome, and tell us a little bit about yourself, Sonia.
Thank you. I'm very happy to be here at the library to talk about this issue. Well, I have a lot of migration in my blood. My father's family fled Christian persecution in Syria and went to Argentina. My father was born there in Argentina. My mother left when she was 7, Poland, Jewish, fleeing before the war, and went to Argentina, was raised there. And then both of them came here looking for a better life, like most migrants. And I'm the only one in my family born in the United States. All my siblings were born in Argentina. So I think I really understand that sense of having a foot in both worlds and always feeling a little bit like an outsider in both places. And I grew up mostly in Kansas, which is where my father was teaching there, and then went to college in Massachusetts. And when my father, I think really the most critical part growing up for me was when my father died when I was 13. My mother said, "I don't really like this country. Los vecinos son tan fríos. The neighbors are so cold. How is it people don't know one another, live next to one another in this country?" Right. So she took us back to Argentina, and that was during the Dirty War, where a lot of people were being disappeared by the military. And I saw the blood on the ground in my neighborhood of a couple of journalists who had been killed. And I decided then when I was 14 that I really wanted to become a journalist because I saw the effect it had to silence the truth tellers. And so I really devoted myself to writing about social issues, social justice issues, and I worked 25 years as a reporter at the Wall Street Journal, LA Times, and now I tell these stories through books, like Enrique's Journey.
Well, we're so glad to have you. Can you tell us a little bit about why you chose this particular young man's, Enrique's modern-day odyssey? Why him, and what was special about his story?
Well, I'm always looking for a new way to write about immigration. It's one of the biggest issues of our time. And, you know, between 1990 and 2010, we actually had more people arrive to the United States as immigrants than at any other time in our nation's history. And we're a nation of immigrants. So trying to find a way to write about this and was just very interested in these single mothers who were coming here by the millions and leaving children behind, telling them this is going to be 1 or 2 years at the most, and it stretches into 10 years, and these children despair of seeing their mothers again, so they set off on their own to come find them. And I learned that these children were making this modern-day odyssey on top of freight trains through Mexico, the only way that they can go with little or no money. So they're grabbing onto the tops of these freight trains and risking their lives trying to reach their mothers. And I thought, I look for stories with universal themes that anyone can understand. And this is a boy who's willing to go through a hostile world to reach his mom. So I was trying to tell that story through one boy, one train going to one mother. And I met Enrique in northern Mexico, and he was on attempt number 8 to reach his mom and had been through many travails. And really, I glommed onto him because his story was so typical of what these now hundreds of thousands of children go through every year trying to come to the United States alone, without a parent. And these kids are as young as 7 years old that are making this journey on top of freight trains by themselves.
Wow, I definitely did not know that before reading the book, and I know that the immigration story is different for everyone, and also people's understanding of immigration policy is not always clear. Why do you think immigration is an important issue for all of us to better understand?
Well, I think for one thing, that huge influx, immigrants went to 6 states traditionally, California included, and in the last 20 years they've dispersed to virtually every county in the United States has had an influx of immigrants. And I think with that has come enormous hostility. And we've seen these patterns over and over again in U.S. history, whether it was, with these influxes in the 1880s, we had the Chinese Exclusion Act. During the Great Depression, we kicked out 1 million Mexicans. Many of them, half of them were here legally. So always with the economy, there are these ups and downs. So I feel that when we get these times of enormous hostility, so many students and others that I talk to say, I was raised to hate immigrants, and I don't know one, but I hate them. And I feel that through writing the story of one immigrant family, it's a way of taking people inside these families and really trying to educate them about what's pushing people to leave. What are they willing to do to get through Mexico? No wall is going to stop these kids that I saw. They were so determined. And who are your new neighbors who live all around you, including, 51% now of the people here undocumented, unlawfully, are women and children, not men. So many of these new neighbors are these women and children. So I thought it was very important to at least understand before you hate.
Yeah, I agree. Researching for you took a lot of personal sacrifice, which I admire tremendously.
Thank you.
I know there were many close calls. The way that you researched eventually caused you to suffer from some post-traumatic stress. Can you talk to us a little bit about that process of getting familiar with your subject and then retelling the story and how that impacts you as the writer?
Yeah. Well, I write nonfiction true stories. So, but I'm trying to my goal in writing about this train ride, this journey that this one boy makes to reach his mother, I wanted you to feel like you were sitting there right next to him on that train and feeling all 5 senses and the immense joy that comes at times and the real heartache at times. So I wanted to go with a kid, but I realized very quickly, these kids are being separated from people that they're traveling with because they're running from gangsters control the tops of the trains, there's bandits alongside the rails, there's corrupt cops, now the Zetas, the worst narco-trafficking cartel in Mexico, controls the train tops, and I would be separated from this child because I can't run as fast as a 15-year-old, so I'd lose my subject. So I decided to find a boy who had already made it all the way to northern Mexico, spend time with him there as I did with Enrique, and then hear everywhere he had been on that journey, and then go back to his home as I did with Enrique and make that journey step by step, just like he had. So I traveled 1,600 miles and about half of that on top of 7 freight trains. And I think that there were many close calls. I almost got grabbed by a gangster. He clearly wanted to rape me. I almost got swept off the train by a branch. The kid behind me got swept off and probably died because you get swept under the wheels of the train. So I had a lot of close calls, but I felt that to really take you inside those critical scenes, those turning points in the story, I needed that level of narrative detail. And also, I just wrote about it with a passion. I know we Latinos are already supposed to be passionate, but I wrote about it with a level of passion and understanding that I could not have gotten sitting in my home in Los Angeles interviewing a child about what they had been through. And so it's a completely different journey.
Yeah, and we so appreciate you doing that for us and giving us this insight that we otherwise wouldn't have had. Your book is highly regarded in many circles, and as a result, you have many loyal fans and readers. Tell us about what's next on the horizon for you.
Well, I'm working on a book for Random House, my second book, that looks at major social issues in the U.S. through women who are taking on those issues, and they provide models for what works. So it's meant to be a book that says, here are the seemingly most intractable issues of our time, but if you look at what these women are doing, you could see what could work. So I'm working on that. I do a lot of speaking about Enrique's journey at everywhere from colleges, high schools, middle schools. There's a young adult version that just came out, so middle schools. Last year I spoke everywhere from middle schools to Harvard to before the General Assembly of the United Nations, so that's a lot of fun educating people. And I'm on the board of 3 nonprofits, so I help them get out their message. I especially work with a group called Kids in Need of Defense that was started by Microsoft and Angelina Jolie, and they work to recruit pro bono attorneys to represent immigrant children in court, because these kids come here and they're alone and they cross into the U.S. and they often get caught and they're ordered to go into immigration court, but they're not entitled to a public defender. So you have these children who are 5 years old, 7 years old, expected to stand up before this judge and present a complex legal case, and the government has an attorney there ready to try argue to deport them back, and often they're being deported back to very violent, dangerous circumstances in their home countries, because the gangs there now are really trying to recruit these young children to work as lookouts, to kill people, to move drugs. So a lot of this, there's been a surge in these children coming, a tenfold increase in the last 4 years, and they're fleeing this violence and this forced gang recruitment. So we're working to, we've recruited 6,000 attorneys over the last 5 years, and pressuring the government to step up and provide attorneys for these children, because in a country like the United States, we shouldn't treat children like that. When it's life and death circumstances, they should have an advocate in court with them, and I do feel very passionately about that.
And we can tell, and we agree, and we're all just so happy to have you here, and to be learning and just absorbing all of this wonderful information that you're here to teach us about. So I want to thank you for your time. I want to thank you for being here. To learn more about Sonia Nazario and Enrique's journey, please visit www.enriquesjourney.com.